Time I'd like to reconvene the regular board meeting. Clerk of the board, please call roll.
Arancibia,
Present.
Hall,
Present.
Segura,
Here.
Solis,
Present.
Tarantino,
Here.
Moore,
Here.
Stubblefield.
Here. Outstanding. We'll now hold a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance if we can keep the people we've lost this past couple weeks in our thoughts and prayers. We appreciate it. Thank you. Please stand. Ready? Begin.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board met in closed session preceding this meeting to discuss the following issues. 1, student expulsion, suspended expulsion, reinstatements, education code 48916 to 48918. Students identified by ID numbers. 2, employee evaluation, appointment transfer, government code section 54957. 3, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, reclassification, reassignment, resignation, transfer, government code section 54957. 4, Conference of Legal Counsel, anticipated litigation, paragraph 2 of subdivision D of government code section 54956.9. 5, Conference of Labor Negotiator, government code section 54957.6. And finally, 6, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, government code section 54957. The board took the following action. Moved by Hall, seconded by Tarantino to approve the reinstatement and placement of 1 student with a vote of Arancibia yes, Hall yes, Segura yes, Solis yes, Tarantino yes. Moved by Arancibia, seconded by Solis to approve the appointment of Nadej Johnson as Director of Grants and Communications with a vote of Arancibia yes, Hall yes, Segura yes, Solis yes, Tarantino yes. Moved by Hall, second by Segura to approve the appointment of Roberto Rodriguez as Director of Labor Relations with a vote of Arancibia yes, Hall yes, Segura yes, Tarantino yes. I'm sorry, Solis yes, Tarantino no. At this time, we'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for the October 11th, 2021 regular board meeting with the change that the board will first consider board agenda item Q2 immediately following this vote. Do I have a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield, Arancibia,
Yes.
Hall. We lose Mrs. Hall. Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, well, we're going to move right immediately to, there's Trustee Hall. Do we have a connection now, Trustee Hall?
Yeah. Sorry, I had a little problem there. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't notice you had moved away. I would have slowed it down a little bit. We just voted on the agenda. Did you want to vote on that?
Okay. Yes,
There we
I
go.
vote yes. Thank you.
Board agenda item Q2 will be considered now.
Move to approve?
Okay.
Thank you. I think we can just go straight to that, right?
Yeah, and just so,
Second.
you know, go for it.
Deanne, we don't need another vote, do we?
No.
We're going to go right to Q2. We already had the vote. All right,
You-
Q2.
If you have no discussion, you can vote.
Yeah,
Vote.
Stubblefield,
Thank you.
Arancibia,
yes.
Hall.
I'm sorry. The sound cut out, and I wasn't quite clear on what we're voting on at this point.
This is board agenda item Q2.
To consider it now.
Okay. Yes.
Sorry, Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right.
Thank you for that.
So if I understand right, we're going right to Q2. Correct?
That's what we just did, I thought.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, that was it?
Yes.
That was it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's what you were making a motion on, correct? Dr.?
Yes,
Yes,
you know,
okay,
it-
that's what I thought,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So you can go back to the board presentations?
Yes. We will now provide an opportunity for SDCO representative, Dr. Mark Scavarna, to make any comments.
No comment tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being there, sir. We will now have a message from Dr. Vernon Moore.
Thank you and good evening, Board Trustees, Student Representative Stubblefield, Cabinet members and members of the public. I'm Vernon Moore. I'm your Chief Educational Equity and Support Services for our wonderful district, and I'm honored to serve as Dr. Moises Aguirre's designee for tonight's board meeting. Dr. Aguirre has had a family emergency and cannot be present for this evening. Our thoughts are with Dr. Aguirre and his family. Also, Dr. Alvarez, our Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, is ill this evening, so we wish her a speedy recovery. We have Ms. Maria Esther Lizarraga, the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, in her place. My comments this evening are very brief. First, simply put, we are living in an unprecedented time. Regardless of your cultural beliefs, political affiliations, or your medical ideologies, this last year and a half have been extraordinarily challenging and affected all of us in our lives. As such, paying close attention to our own mental health and maintaining our well-being are essential activities. Yesterday, October 10th, was World Mental Health Day. On today's board agenda, item H3 is an agreement with San Diego County Health and Human Services to continue to provide therapy opportunities for our students. This agreement symbolizes just one aspect of the many, many efforts to support the mental health and wellness of our students and staff. Also, today is Columbus Day as well as Indigenous Peoples Day. Board agenda item Q1 is an annual resolution designating the month of November as Native American Heritage Month. We look forward to the school and classroom activities honoring the indigenous people of our country. Finally, I would like to remind the board and everyone that is joining us that the Magaisa conference is scheduled for Saturday, October 16th, from 8:30 a.m. to 12 noon. Magaisa means unity, to become one. It is an incredible event celebrating Filipino culture. This event will be online and will feature an address by California Attorney General Rob Bonta, presentations about college and career, as well as cultural activities. Valerie Ruiz, the assistant principal at Montgomery High School, and Margaret Magabasco, an adult education teacher, are chairing this awesome event. Information can be found at the Magaisa Instagram page, SUHSD Magaisa. That concludes my remarks, and thank you, trustees and the public. I look forward to a very productive meeting this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Thank you, Dr. Moore. We'll now have a report from the Student Board Representative, Ms. Gabrielle Stubblefield.
Good evening. I would like to take this time and share my conversation with the students from the Eco Club at Hilltop High School and the students from Bonita. They were at our last board meeting and educated us on the dangers of the environmental dangers of fracking. Our conversation discussed our goals, and the representatives are working with Dr. Bravo to move the item forward, and will continue to discuss how we will bring larger Eco Club goals across the district. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. This is the point on agenda where members of the public may address the board on any matter not on the agenda and have 3 minutes each to do so. The Board of Trustees cannot legally take action on or respond to matters not posted on the public agenda, but will refer the matter to the Superintendent's office for review and report. Speaker, thank you for your cooperation.
Edgar Espinosa? You can go up to the microphone.
Good afternoon, board. Good afternoon, attendees. I'm just going to read from what I have
Sure.
prepared. Hello, members of the board and attendees of this meeting. My name is Edgar Espinosa. I am an Eastlake water polo resident, parent, referee, and coach. I am also the president and director for Southern Water Polo Club, the biggest water polo club in the South Bay. We have 180 USA water polo member athletes and 12 USA water polo member coaches. I am here in support of the petition to build a pool at Eastlake High School. There are hundreds of signatures for this petition. I have been involved in water polo locally at different levels throughout the last 32 years. Hundreds of athletes I've coached, including my daughters, have benefited from playing water polo at different levels. But unfortunately, our pools in the South Bay are overcrowded, and there is simply no space to grow aquatic activities or programs as a community. I have no doubt that building a new pool at Eastlake High School will improve our way of life as a community. There are many programs and activities that could benefit from this, not just water polo. So, as an aquatic director and as a parent of a resident of Eastlake, I am 100% in support of this petition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Coach.
Diego Sheet. He's outside, or he might be in A and B. Can you go over? The video's not working over there. Jenny, do you want to make your comments? Jenny Scheit.
Thank you. All right, so hello again. They say the squeaky wheel gets the grease, so hopefully we're being squeaky enough. I know we've been here many times, and I really appreciate your time and honor how I'm thankful how much you've been listening to us. The reason why we're here is because I know for sure if we don't advocate for a pool will not be built. The district was formed in 1920. It's been 100 years, and there are no pools in the Sweetwater district. Without you guys advocating for us, showing the community that you're listening to all 900 of us that signed the petition, all the families that are coming here, all the coaches who represent hundreds more of the people that can't come. It is a huge commitment to come all the way out here. It's 30 minutes. It's after work. We have kids. We're giving up other things. They have practice. They have other things. So it's a huge thing that we are doing to come out here and let you know how much we need you to advocate for us to get a pool built at Eastlake. There are 3 things that I want to advocate for tonight. So the first one that I want to make clear is that we are asking for a pool at Eastlake be put on the construction list at the facilities meeting. So we are hoping that a pool at Eastlake will be put on the construction list at the facilities meeting next Monday. Things I want to talk about that I researched were guidelines of the school board. I was wondering what your role is as a trustee. And when reading over the website, directly from the website, it says the very first sentence, the Board of Trustees has been elected. So you guys have been elected to represent us by the community to provide leadership and citizen oversight of the district. The board shall ensure that the district is responsible to the values, beliefs, and priorities of the community. Over 900 signatures and counting. It is very hard to get signatures. If any of you have tried, you're all elected, you know how hard it is to get people to take action. And so even though it's only 900, that represents hundreds more of people who looked at it, who are privacy issues, who weren't sure if they could sign it. It really represents even more than 900. The reason why we wanted at Eastlake, just to reiterate, we have 500 more students than any other campus on the east side. We have 100 more water athletes. We have coach like Stu and Edgar who were just here telling you how much they would use the pool and how much we need it. We need all of you, from Dr. Aguirre to his representative tonight, to the board members, to be our advocates. When I was looking at what is your role in terms of facilities as a school board member, and again, I quote, the Board of Trustees recognizes the importance of long-range planning for school facilities in order to meet the changing needs of district students and to ensure that resources are allocated in an efficient manner. To that end, the board directs the superintendent and his or her designee to develop and maintain a master plan. Without your help, a pool will not be built. We need you to advocate. We ask for you to put a pool at Eastlake on the construction list at the facilities meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Giovanni Scheit.
Good afternoon, or evening, I suppose, members of the board. Thank you for letting me speak. So that's my mom and my brother's here, my family's here. You guys probably know us, or at least have seen us at this point. I go to Eastlake High School right now, as you may or may not know. I'm a senior. I've been there all 4 years. I've went to Eastlake Middle School, and I also attended Arroyo Vista Elementary, which is another school in the, like right there. I live in that neighborhood. It's my neighborhood. And when I was younger, I was like, how am I supposed to fit into this neighborhood? It doesn't really feel like I belong here. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that the more energy that you put into something, the more it gives you, right? So for me, what that means is the more that I can dedicate myself towards helping my community, helping my neighbors, just being neighborly and kind, the more that I can receive that from other people. So I come here before you to ask that you guys hear us, right? I'm sure you've all heard at this point, we want a pool. We want a pool, but I want you to understand that we want more than just a pool. We also want to involve our community. The last time that I was here, I spoke about the lack of community involvement in terms of aquatic sports. The next Friday after that board meeting, I had a ASB assembly for like a pep rally for our school. And during the pep rally, we were going to have like a roast battle. For those of you that don't know what roasting is, it's basically just like a elementary insult, right? Like, oh, you got roasted. And we were going against the football team, and I asked one of them, what was like one of your roasts going to be? And he was going to be like, how many of you like make some noise if you've been to a water polo game? And then obviously, everyone at the pool would not say anything, or everyone at the field wouldn't say anything, right? And that's just because for so many people, it's such a chore to be able to drive to Southwestern College, or sometimes Las Palmas, or the east side of Chula Vista, or the west side. And for me, it's disheartening. You know, I've spent my life in the pool. At this point, I feel like I've given it a lot of my life. And I would really be able to, I would really appreciate being able to give that opportunity to other people and other students who aren't as fortunate as I am to have parents who support me and allow me to go to other pools and other locations and travel to Irvine to play a sport that I really enjoy. So yeah, on that note, thank you guys very much for listening to me speak.
Thank you.
Diego Scheit?
Hello, board. I'm sure you're tired of seeing us, but that's kind of the point. Like, we want to be heard. We're going to keep coming until we feel like we've been listened to. We feel like we've been heard. We really need a pool at Eastlake. I feel like that's a huge barrier for people to be able to go to practice. Having to drive 30 minutes to and from a pool in order to play a sport at a high school is a huge barrier, like I said. So having a pool is also a great way to build water skills amongst high school students. I was a lifeguard. That was my first job. When I turned 16, I became a lifeguard. And I also earned a certification to teach swimming lessons. And I started teaching these swimming lessons, and people had no idea what to do in the water. And it was only 3 weeks long, and they swam for 2 hours a week. They learned so many essential skills in those 3 weeks. They felt completely comfortable in the water. And let me tell you how old these kids were. They were 5. At the beginning, they had no idea what to do in the water, and by the end, they felt pretty comfortable. Being able to bring something like this to students at Eastlake High School is a great opportunity, and you'd be saving lives. That's basically all I wanted to say. Thank you for your time. Have a good rest of your night, guys.
Thank you.
There's a Mr. Greg Cobb on the phone. Mr. Cobb, the form you sent me was blank. Are you addressing a non-agenda item or an agenda item?
A non-agenda item.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Greg Cobb.
To the Sweetwater Union High School School Board. This is from one of my students from East of Academy. Her name is Camila Casas. And it says, I do not enjoy the 500 megahertz bell sound, which is loud, and it lasts for 5 seconds per class change plus break. The loud bell sound hurts my ears. Could you please change it? For example, could you set custom bell chime sounds. Additionally, we need a bus for our community-based instruction outings on Thursdays. Access to transportation at Eastlake Academy is very limited. It's over 1.5 miles away, which transportation would allow us to go to further destinations such as Imperial Beach and the Chula Vista Mall. I feel that it is too far to walk every week from Eastlake Academy to the Otay Ranch Mall for our community-based outings. So please add some buses to assist my classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further speakers.
Thank you. Clerk of the Board, will you please read the items being pulled from the consent agenda?
The following items are pulled. F3 by staff, F7 by Mr. Tarantino, F8 by Dr. Arencibia, staff and the public, K1 by Mr. Tarantino, N1 by Mr. Tarantino, N3 by Mr. Tarantino, and P2 by Dr. Arencibia and staff.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield,
Yes.
Arencibia,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Segura,
Yes.
Solis,
Yes.
Tarantino.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Great. Let's move down to F3. Report on board request for information, policy direction to staff, and board communication. Anybody want to lead off or on that item? I'll lead off then, and I have a really just short, brief comments, and I'd like to thank Dr. Moore for stepping up and sitting in for Dr. Righetti, and thank Maria Esther Lizarga, sorry, you know I butcher names. My apologies. Thank you for stepping up for Dr. Alvarez. And I will also be, Saturday I'll be attending the Magallesa conference, as I promised 2 months ago, I think it was. I look forward to that. That's going to be very interesting. I look to learn from that. And I told you I had a really short list, so that's the end of my of what I have. Dr. Arencibia, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to congratulate Leah Cadell. She ended up getting a $750 scholarship from the Chula Vista Elks Lodge. I also wanted to note for the record and kind of give, props to some of my classmates from high school. They were Bonita Vista High School graduates who are now working in the Pentagon as brigadier generals.
Wow.
They ended up becoming promoted. Folks of color, too. That's really, really a beautiful thing. Frank Verdugo, class of 1988, Bonita Vista High School. And Brigadier General Michelle Meyer, class of 1988, also music machine member at the same time, too. And another person that's working with them at the Pentagon is Captain William Linwood Walton, class of 1989. I just want to say how proud I am. The neighborhood kids lived down the block from me. Now they're working in the Pentagon, and they're proud Bonita Vista High School graduates. So it's just really, really wonderful. And to kind of point out to folks, yeah, there's a career there that they can make through. Really wonderful news.
Thank you, Dr. Arencibia. Very impressive. Vice President Solis, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, thank you, President Scuda. I just wanted to say thank you to all our workers at the district for all their hard work. I know it's been a crazy 1.5 years, so I just wanted to continue to say thank you, and we appreciate all you do. And I also wanted to see about, I didn't quite hear a lot of the comments for, I believe it's for East Hills Academy student, Ms. Casas. I didn't hear completely, so I don't know if we can look into what she was requesting, or it was, the audio was kind of off, so I just heard something about a bus and needed for outings or something like that. So if we can just get an update on what that need is, we can look into that. And that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice President Solis. It was noted. Mr. Tarantino, would you like to go, sir? Thank you.
Thank you, President Segura. I'd like to congratulate Andrea Orozco, who graduated from Castle Park High School and was the recipient of a $1,000 scholarship from Wheelhouse Credit Union for her leadership and public service and desire to make a sustainable difference in her school and community. Also, I'd like to recognize the contributions of two Eastlake community members, Katia Callahan and Dania Avalos, who have logged countless hours of volunteer hours in supporting both Eastlake High and Eastlake Middle. And I also echo Mr. Solis's concern about what Mr. Hobb reported. My understanding is that East Hills Academy is a school in which all of the students have IEPs, and so I would understand why there's a problem getting bus transportation. I think that if we could get some clarification on that, it would be very helpful. Thank you. That's all I have, President Segura.
Thank you, Mr. Tarantino. Trustee Hall, did you have anything?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. I echo all the comments about how wonderful our staff is. I know everyone is back from a much needed 2-week break and probably are still feeling overwhelmed by everything that they are doing at sites to keep students safe, to keep each other safe. I really appreciate all the effort and work going on across the district. Thank you all. Everyone is essential, and you are all rising to the occasion. I can't express my gratitude enough. I would like to ask for Superintendent Aguirre, when he has the ability, and I'm glad Dr. Moore is here as well. I would like to set up a meeting with you both and myself with Miss Nadia Ayub, who is a representative in our district. She has a lot of community work that she does, and she runs a nonprofit in support of our LGBTQ students and families, the guardians and families, and we're looking to, she's looking for ways to be able to support them and to get the word out across our South Bay to students and families about ways to support them. So I'd like to see what we can do to partner with her in that effort. So I just am going to request that we have a meeting set up. I know there's a lot on your plates right now, but I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. And with that, we'll move to F7, which is an MOU with some of our bargaining units, and it was pulled by Mr. Tarantino.
Thank you, President Segura. Yes, I'm glad that we've finally addressed this issue of stipends. I'm glad to see that we are conducting a 2-year pilot program. I just need some clarification because I'm a little bit confused. If you look at there's a sheet in which it gives all of the stipends for high school and then middle school, and it talks about units. And I know that in the analysis, a unit for a stipend is set at $467, as currently defined by 1% of base teacher salary without statutory implications. But I don't exactly know what a unit is. So if I'm looking at the chart and it says pep band, for example, it gives 3 units. Does that mean that there are 3 stipends for pep band? And is that district-wide? Is that, I'm assuming it's per site, but I need some clarification as to what a unit is. I'm not familiar with that term.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Trustee Tarantino, for that question. And other districts do offer units, and our General Counsel, Ms. Carbuccia, has worked on this particular item, and she'll be providing the explanation regarding units.
Sure, and so I'm going to go a little broader than that. So basically where we've been sitting is we have been working what feels like for 5 years, but we'll just say for a year or so, with the stipend committee, most recently around concepts of site-based stipends. And so really talking about the fact that a one-size-fits-all model doesn't work, but at the same time, once it's codified in the contract, there's a belief by our partners that that means every site gets one of those. But not every site is going to have a surf club, right? Not every site is going to have pep band, as you've used in as example. So what we sat down and spent a lot of time, this went back and forth, frankly, for a couple of years, where we've been going through and talking about the association's belief that certain things should be in the contract. And so we went through everything that is on that list that you saw, are ideas that came forward from our bargaining unit partners, and they had assigned, for the most part, comparable to the current existing amount of money that's assigned for the contracted units or contracted stipend amounts, dividing those out to kind of get an idea of what's the hourly expectation, how many students are you serving, how many performances happen over the course of a semester, how many after hours, because this is all about work that's done after duty hours. And so that committee with SEA as well as with Mr. Cover and our team sat down and went through really analyzing each of those proposed stipends to determine what it might look like. But there's a lot, and we recognize there's a lot that frankly a site's going to know that we're not going to have. And so we thought that if we came up with a common unit, a common amount of money that people could sit and say, you'll see from that form that a school site could come and say, we want to do a surf club. And we believe it's going to have 4 competitions, it's going to take practice of this many hours, and based on common expectations, which if you see on that list, it sets forth expectations, that's how they got to the number of units. So the expectation is that 1 unit is a certain expectation, 2, 3, 4, 5. So one person, one coach would get a stipend that could be a 1 unit, or a 7 unit, depending, show choir. I mean, as you look at what those expectations are. So what a site is gonna do is they're gonna look at their proposed ideas, what students want on their campus, talking to their ASB, talking to clubs and saying, what do we need that we don't have that would engage you more in your campus? And then present to this stipend, this much smaller stipend committee to say, we believe it should be surf club. We think it is 3 units. We believe we have 50 kids that are interested. We believe we have a coach. We believe, and that coach could be a certificated bargaining unit member. That's normally we see, but we also see with athletics, the first part of this stipend, that could have been classified members as well. We have a range depending on who it is. But they would come forward and they would bring that to the committee. And the committee would say, yes, we do, or, hey, given what you're saying your expectations are, this is really 4, or this is really 2, so we will approve it if you make a change. So it really, that way there's some consistency across the whole district. There was a very big concern that an Eastlake, who has not only more students, but more socioeconomic wealth that could come in from a booster club, if it was privately funded, or some others, may decide to have 47 stipends, and they may be 12 each, as opposed to a Southwest High or Sioux High, who may not have that funding background, right? And so there really was meant to be a little bit of a check in the middle. That committee is set up to include people that are involved, middle school, high school, VAPA, STEAM, and all of our different areas in between. So it really is a concept. I know that was a long-winded way, sorry, Mr. Tarantino, but we've been working for a long time on this, that this would hopefully set a foundation where school sites would have the ability to come up with site-based funds for things that they believe their students need. And it would be based on a set unit.
No apologies necessary, Ms. Carbuccia. Thank you for that clarification. I just was not familiar with the term unit. Thank you. You did an excellent job in explaining it. If there's no other questions or concerns, I'll move approval of F7.
There's a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Stubblefield?
Yes.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, let's move to F8. We have a presentation and discussion only on Governor Newsom's executive order. and considerations for early implementation of mandatory vaccinations for staff and students.
Thank you, Trustee and President Segura. As we get the presentation loaded, this is some of our best thinking around implementing a safe and effective COVID-19 vaccination status. We know that last month, Governor Newsom issued an executive order for our schools indicating that there should be plans to have the vaccination status implemented in education. And this presentation represents our best thinking. Thank you. The agenda, very briefly, there we'll hit on about 8 different topics. Before we begin, I'd also like to make sure that our district physician, Dr. Howard Terrace, I will be, I'll make sure he joins the presentation so that he can answer any questions that the board or public may have at the end. You'll see we'll cover COVID-19 vaccine, its impacts, some data, what we're doing in terms of protection currently at our school sites, the board action. This is not the first time we've considered COVID-19 as a district or as a board. We'll take a look at some specific data at a glance from last week. Look at what the statewide vaccination update means. Some early implementation, looking at what some other districts have done. Talk about our implementation options, and then open it up for board discussion. Again, and I said in some of my opening remarks, COVID-19 and this era has affected all of us. Maybe not directly personally, but over 700,000 people have died from COVID. Over 4,000 people in San Diego County, as well as within our district boundaries, over 1,300 people. There has been staff and students and families directly affected by COVID-19. Regarding the vaccines, though I'm not a scientist or a doctor, a medical doctor, the vaccines, the mRNA vaccine does teach our immune system to recognize and fight the virus. It has been demonstrated to help people from getting seriously ill, as well as curbing the spread of the virus. And according to the CDC, in their research, the vaccines that are currently available are effective against the variants. We just are seeing, hopefully, the decline of the Delta variant, but many researchers are showing that there could be another variant or two related to the coronavirus on the horizon. I'd now like to turn it over to our General Counsel, Jenny Carbuccia. She has really taken the lead for COVID-19 and our response to COVID-19 for our district in terms of working with vaccination clinics, as well as setting up testing protocols at our sites. And so with that, I'd like to have Ms. Carbuccia take over.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. It's been a huge effort, and I appreciate very much the work that our entire cabinet has done and has been involved in steps on COVID. So what we wanted to present and give you a little bit of a placing this in context. So as Dr. Moore stated, with the number of deaths that have occurred specifically within our district boundaries, it's important to note that 14%, our district boundaries make up 14% of the county, but 25% of the deaths. And so that really is a key point that we want to make sure folks are aware of. We have been working, and those numbers come from the County Department of Public Health. We have been working with the County Department of Public Health through our doctor, Dr. Terrace, and we did receive our aggregate data. We were able to pull information. We don't have it disaggregated by individuals' names, but of the 36,523 students of the data that we sent over to them, of those, over 99% are within the 12 and up age bracket. So that's really key. We're talking about our entire community of students fall into, right now, eligibility to test. Of those students, through the county's data, 65% have received at least one dose of the COVID vaccine, and over 60% are fully vaccinated, obviously under the Pfizer vaccine. Of our staff, and you'll see these are a little different than the numbers we get to in a couple of slides, but of the 4,642 Sweetwater staff and our substitutes, 83.6% have received at least one dose of the vaccine, and 80% of all Sweetwater staff have received all recommended doses. And this is really key. About 3,700 employees are our permanent Sweetwater employees. And so that number includes our substitutes. So substitutes that are long-term, but that are also day-to-day serving across the entirety of this county. And so that is a really high number for the purposes of including those subs, as you'll see in a subsequent slide. So why does this matter? A lot of the work that you'll hear and you've seen over the 6 or 7 presentations that we brought to you before the board when we're talking about reopening plans or COVID plans or testing plans is that this really is about multiple layers of protection. It's the Swiss cheese analogy. The vaccine in there, or the COVID virus in there looks a little like mold to me, but so it's still Swiss cheese, but it really is talking about how when you put a layer upon a layer upon a layer of protection, you ultimately stop that virus. And so getting vaccinated is absolutely one of the first steps. You know, we've already implemented face masks. Indoors and for the most part outdoors and with sports as well. We've implemented hand hygiene. We've talked about social distancing inside and outside. We've talked about pre-screening at home. Every student participates. We've implemented county quarantine and isolation. We've invested in improved ventilation. We're doing contact tracing daily. We're engaged in educational awareness. Check out the COVID website if you haven't already. As well as we're working with the county the County Department of Health on public health reinforcements. So they very commonly, our nurses are on the phone with public health sometimes hours a day, talking about outbreaks that are happening at certain schools, talking about testing, talking about actually contact tracing what's happening, and that is a huge step as well. But so all of these are our protection layers, and vaccines really are one of the strongest ones. Next slide. So if you want to hit it one more time, these are many of the items that we brought before you. You've had from the very beginning on March 23rd, the emergency conditions resolution that allowed you to act. You've seen COVID operational reports. We've approved and reapproved and modified. The one thing about COVID is constant change. Modified reopening plans. You've seen agreements with the county office or the County of San Diego for our nurses. Thank you to our associations, in particular SEA, assisting with allowing our RNs to assist the county when they didn't have enough nurses to vaccinate. Similar, you'll see an agreement with San Ysidro School District and Family Health Services to our nurses to assist them as well in getting our communities vaccinated. You'll see updates that we've provided on ESSER funds, many of them that have included the Swiss cheese, and you'll also see agreements that we've entered into with the state of California for pooled testing services, with San Diego State University for the NIH grant, for COVID short-term staffing, because frankly, we just can't put all of the COVID work onto our bargaining units. And similar for an outside contract with Manpower, to assist with that short-term staffing, to cover our testing sites, to assist with contact tracing, to assist with logging and calling families. So you've obviously seen us before you a number of times related to COVID. And just to give you an update, so as one of the things, this is just a week and a glance, but last week we did come back for the second quarter, and a number of really big things were in effect. COVID is involved in just about all of our staff's lives. 83% of our staff at that time and 15% of our subs had submitted proof of vaccination. Last week was our first week of mandated staff testing if they hadn't submitted the vaccination, and 99.9% of staff and 25% of our substitutes have either submitted proof of vaccination or submitted to weekly testing last week. It's only the first week and we've got a lot more to go, but we are really blessed to have 25 testing sites available to staff and students, and multiple others available just to staff, to ensure that staff don't miss out and that students don't miss out on a lot of either instructional time or time at work so that they can comply with the mandates. We have from what seems like the very beginning of this school year have implemented a requirement that our athletes and our students participating in extracurricular activities test weekly. And frankly, that's where we've seen many of the cases that we've had, including the few outbreaks that we have had in the district, are directly related and tied to an extracurricular activity. Last week, 3,800 roughly students in athletics and extracurricular activities pool tested, and then a number also antigen tested based on those follow-ups. To increase the numbers of testing, we are working on specifically assisting our substitute teachers who may not just work for us with getting tested or getting assistance to upload their vaccination cards, as well as with our coaches. So we have an event this Wednesday at the Chula Vista Youth Theater, the area right on the Chula Vista High School campus. From 3 to 5, we will be doing testing and assisting our substitutes with uploading proof of vax, similar with our coaches. It's less pressing with our coaches because our coaches already test weekly with their students who participate in athletics, which is key. We also have created and begun again vaccination clinics in partnership with San Ysidro Health, as well as with the Doctors Via. Tomorrow we will be having at Chula Vista High School our first San Ysidro Health clinic vaccine testing that our students may participate, and our staff may also get their third booster for those of them that have not already, and we will be rolling that out at 8 other sites thus far, as well as either I believe it's a Friday event all day at Montgomery, or all afternoon and evening at Montgomery High School for our students. Well, they will bring their families, so it'll also be a family event, and for our staff that want boosters. Our next big step really is pool testing in the classrooms district-wide instead of just really focused on our athletics. So that's where we've been and our updates. Why are we here tonight? So 2 big orders have come out from the governor in the month of August and the month of September. And while our neighboring districts may have had the opportunity to sit back and think about it for a while, we have been actively, we're now in second quarter already. And so August 11th, when that mandate came out that goes into effect Thursday of this week, October 15th, we have already engaged our staff as we talked about those numbers. Staff are required to either submit proof of vax or weekly testing. We've already begun that implementation fully. On September 30th, the most recent action, the governor issued an executive order requiring staff and students to either receive a COVID vaccination to be able to continue participating in employment or public education. That order was implemented in the governor's cadence, was implemented by grade groups. So 7 through 12 was one grade group, and K to 6 was a second grade group. So they estimate, based on where we are currently with FDA approval, that grade group 7 to 12 under the governor's order, those students will be expected to be vaccinated by July 1st, 2022. which would be following full FDA approval of that age bracket. The governor's order allows for both personal beliefs and religious exemptions, as it wasn't passed as a law. And just for a year, I know you're aware of this, but just to kind of put ourselves in context, currently the FDA has approved Pfizer vaccines for individuals 16 and up. So for students 16, 17, or 18, and for students 12 through 15, it is an emergency authorization only at this point.
There are some districts across the state that have already taken definitive action as it relates to these vaccination mandates. We'll talk about San Diego Unified and LA Unified in a moment, but Culver City, Oakland Unified, Urban Discovery, which is a charter school in San Diego, their boards of trustees and districts have taken actions to implement some of these mandates. So in San Diego Unified specifically, in late September, the board passed a resolution. Their plan is to have 16 and older have their first dose by the end of November, with their second dose right before the winter break. And then for the ages 12 to 15 in San Diego Unified, it won't be required until FDA approval is granted. They're putting a publicized deadline on December 20th to have the staff vaccinated, and they're not allowing for any religious or personal belief exemptions at this point. In LA Unified, the board passed a resolution in early September. Their plan is to have students 12 and up receive their full doses of vaccine by December 20th, right before the winter break. And any students turning 12 after that December 20th date would have 30 days. Students involved in athletics and extracurricular activities need to show proof of vaccine in LA by the end of the month, this month, October. And their plan is to have students not attend school if they're eligible for vaccines unless they have a medical exemption, and they're wanting their staff, and their plan is to have the staff vaccinated by October 15th. I can tell you, minute to minute, things are changing. There was just some articles that just came out recently within the last half hour. The LA Times is reporting that there could be some delays in the plan that the Los Angeles Unified School District is authorizing. And so, though we have outlined what we have understood and researched their implementation plan to be, please note that that could be changing minute by minute. Really, we see the board and today's discussion around two specific options, following some other districts and accelerating the implementation of the governor's order, or aligning implementation to the governor's timeline. Again, Ms. Carbuccio went over that timeline, which does give some time for implementation into 2022. And so with that, as we conclude our presentation, we'll take potentially at the president's discretion some comments, and then we'll have Dr. Terrace also available to us to potentially answer some questions from the board.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. I will go to public comment.
Julie Walker.
President Segura, members of the board, Dr. Moore, thank you for this opportunity to comment on this option. I am here speaking as an individual tonight, not as a representative of my association. I have a bachelor's degree in biological sciences. I have been a science teacher in this and other districts for 35 years. I teach genetics. I understand mRNA and I understand vaccines, how they work, and the efficacy. I support vaccination. I am vaccinated, my mother's vaccinated, my kids are vaccinated. They're adults, I had to hit them over the head, the older one especially, but I told her, don't come home without it. Your grandmother needs you to be vaccinated, you need to see grandma. I have some reservations about early implementation. There are some unintended consequences, particularly with our staff and with our teachers. Right now, we don't have enough teachers. We don't have enough substitutes. If you potentially take 10% of our staff, our teachers, away from the classroom because you say vaccinate or, don't come to school, where we're at is not a single teacher will have a prep period for the remainder of the school year. We don't have the staff. If you let them go, have them resign or whatever, we will have permanent positions open, and we have a RIF list of over 150 teachers. The people that are at the top of that RIF list are right now probably in contracts elsewhere. And if you have to offer and they're in the middle of a contract, they will be in an untenable situation because they can't take the job here. I have RIFT members with 5 and 6 years seniority in this district who want to come back, who are just waiting to come back. But if you do this mid-year, there's a potential that they won't be able to ever come back to Sweetwater because less senior teachers will be able to take those permanent positions because they're not on a contract right now. So I need you to think about that. I need you to think about my colleagues because I hear from them on a regular basis. And I hear, yeah, I'm taking a job right now at Grossmont. I know it's temporary, but man, Julie, when can we come back? When can we come back? When can we come back? We want to be back here. This is my community. I want to be back. And if you do this mid-year and we have to offer permanent positions because there's open permanent positions, we're going to really mess up a lot of our more senior RIF teachers. So please consider that when you deliberate this and when you make your decision. Thank you.
Rachel Jenkins?
Hi, I am coming to you as a parent of a Sweetwater student and also as a nurse at Rady Children's Hospital that has been serving our pediatric community through this COVID outbreak. From the beginning, it seems like what they have been deciding to do and to implement to protect the community has been a detriment to children and students. I can say that our hospital and specifically the PICU during shutdown was there wasn't children there sick with COVID. There were it was very full of kids that in a state of deep depression were taking their lives or attempting to. And now as we're seeing, once they approved the vaccine for the teenage age, we saw a shift in kids coming in with cardiac issues. Again, not with COVID, not with, our PICU was not full of kids sick with COVID. It was kids that had reactions to the vaccine, heart inflammation, some damage that is permanent. And while, again, I do believe in vaccination, I myself am vaccinated, to mandate something that could potentially harm our children, it just doesn't seem in the best interest. Also, recently, within the medical community, they have forced a lot of people out of their jobs. because they will not get vaccinated. And we were already short-staffed, and with the number of nurses, respiratory therapists, you know, all the different people within our hospital, it's getting to the point where it's unsafe, you know. And I just feel like it's going to be the same, you know, if 15% of teachers that aren't vaccinated choose to not and walk away from their jobs. That's going to, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Elam.
Good evening, board. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
First, I'd like to send my positive thoughts out to Dr. Aguirre. I'm sorry to hear that he's facing some challenges right now. I strongly support implementing a requirement for all staff and students to be vaccinated against COVID-19 in order to attend in-person school. I do not have the privilege of sitting in a boardroom or offices away from campus, but instead I am sitting with students every day. As multiple other districts have done, I would urge our district not to wait until next school year, but to start implementing it as soon as possible. We're looking at districts, LA Unified, Oakland, San Diego Unified, all massive districts. I think it goes without saying that all staff working on campus with students should be required to be fully vaccinated. Our job as employees, as a school district, is above all to protect our students. Interacting with students without being vaccinated simply puts them at more risk. The fully FDA-approved vaccine has been available to school employees for more than 6 months now. I see no reason to not follow the science and require all employees and then students to be fully vaccinated. With all due respect, companies around the country have mandated the vaccine, and what they are repeatedly seeing is that the employees who claim they will never get vaxxed have now gotten vaxxed. It's a scare tactic to say we'll all be covering classes the rest of the year, given the huge number of teachers who are already vaxxed in our district. LA Unified started with staff and extracurriculars. As we move into the winter sports season with far more indoor sports, this would be extremely helpful in terms of keeping student athletes in school. It also makes complete sense to require all students to be fully vaccinated before returning to school second semester. I have students who have repeatedly expressed that they're uncomfortable and anxious being in the classroom with others who are not vaccinated. I also have students who desperately want to get vaccinated, but the adults in their lives have told them they can't get it until the school requires it. Finally, I urge you only to allow medical exemptions. It can be assumed that the legislature will act in January to close the personal objection loophole once they reconvene, but there's no reason to wait for that when we can take action to protect our students and communities now. As Ms. Garbucci mentioned, our communities have been incredibly hard hit by the COVID epidemic, and it is our responsibility as a district to step up and keep our students and our community safe, and that starts with the adults in the building who are facing a fully FDA-authorized vaccine, and the science is incredibly clear that it is absolutely safe, and there is no acceptable reason beyond medical exemptions for those working with vulnerable students to not be fully vaccinated. Thank you.
Tom Leet.
Good evening, board trustees, and next time, Superintendent Aguirre. My name is Tom Lee, I'm a teacher at Eastlake High School and also a PhD in parasitology. And I'm here to speak in favor of aggressive action to mandate vaccination for students and staff. And I want to kind of answer a question I keep hearing: why mandate vaccination for COVID when you don't mandate vaccination for the flu? They're very different organisms. A key thing in infectious disease is the rate, the basic reproduction rate. It's a number that measures how infectious something is. For influenza, that's a low number, about 1.5. What that means is you only need to vaccinate or have immune about 1/3 of the population, and you'll break transmission of the flu. That means we don't have to convince all of the reluctant people to get vaccinated. We can do it with the people who would do it on their own. The Delta variant of the COVID virus is a very high number. It's 5 at the minimum. That means over 80% of the population has to be immune before you'll break transmission. When the population will not voluntarily get to that 80% rate, and they're not, the nation's currently at 65, then governments must act to mandate, in the name of public health, vaccination of everyone that can possibly be vaccinated. All government levels have to do this. You have to do this to push people across that line. Otherwise, COVID will never end. So, please take action to help stop the pandemic. Please take action to get everybody vaccinated. And just one more note, the presentation that was made with by staff this evening is not attached to NOAA's agenda. It'd be nice to see that. So thank you very much for your time. And again, in the name of public health, we have to force people to vaccinate, because if we don't, they won't vaccinate enough on their own, and this will never end. Thank you.
Noemi Abreu?
Good evening, Board. My name is Noemi Abrego. I've worked as a nurse, and now I volunteer for legal work. I'm a mother of 3, and I come here with my daughter from East County, and now she's in this school district. I know that a lot of kids were sick last year with COVID, and people that were sick with COVID, and nobody died. I don't know, but the thing is that my son, that's 5, he has now he has anxiety. I mean, when he went to Chula Vista School District, because that's where he's going right now, he has suffered with anxiety, which is something that my oldest never has suffered with, and I had to, utilize the crisis line and stuff like that, because obviously he was forced to have to go to distance learning at the time. So I'm just saying that, this feels very forced, and I feel that it's unfair to the kids that don't have a choice, and honestly, my concern is that it feels very pushy. With COVID will never end. I mean, Israel keeps on getting these constant outbreaks anyway, with, boosters and boosters. Like, it's never gonna stop. I mean, our bodies recognize someone's, like, germs in the area, for example, or like people in the area, and that's how, your immune system is built. But it's not going to be able to be that way because we're masked up. You don't contact directly with, another student. Like my son hasn't been able to. He just has to be forced in class with the mask on all day. And honestly, I feel like that's growing his anxiety. So I just feel like this just feels very push, and my concern is that it's going against their, HIPAA law, like all the kids that are underage. That's my concern. And I just want to urge you to, just, I guess, try to go into other avenues, because I think I'll be pulling my daughter out. I just don't want to do it. Thank you.
No further speakers.
Thank you. We'll open it up for board comments, questions on this item. Anybody want to chime in first? Trustee Hall.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, is that all right, sir?
I didn't realize you had raised your hand.
You just did right before you.
Go
Trustee
for it.
Hall, go ahead. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Terrace to the video. Thank you, sir, for being here. Go ahead, Trustee Hall.
Thank you, President Segura. I would like to, I appreciate the people that came forward to speak this evening and share their positions on this item. I am a person that is really concerned about the spread of the disease, the virus, because of how dangerous it has been to our community, to our country, to our nation, and our world. It's been very devastating across the world. And Dr. Ferris, you can provide us some information or some insight into what Chris Elam, one of the speakers, alluded to about the spread and Mr. Leet, the Tom Leet, who is a PhD and was speaking to the type of virus it is and how it spreads, and really about how we defeat this virus, at least get it into a manageable state where we don't have people going to the hospital and dying, and hospitals being overwhelmed by patients they can no longer help because of this disease and the progression it's made. So I'd really like to hear from you about that, and if we are on the right path with a vaccine and people getting vaccine, and that will get us to a place where we can get back in person, because I know I'm really looking forward to that personally. And I just like to hear a little bit from you about that, if you don't mind, President Segura.
Absolutely not. Go ahead, Dr. Terrace. I don't mind at all. You go ahead and answer those questions that she laid out.
Sure. Yes, it is very true that we are going to have a high percentage of people vaccinated in order to stop the spread of the vaccine, of the disease, particularly the Delta variant. The more there is spread among the unvaccinated, the higher chances we will develop yet another variant, thereby requiring more boosters or even a different type of vaccine or a different version of the vaccine. This is very true among people here in the United States. We also have to worry about variants developing among unvaccinated in other parts of the world. So yes, there's two challenges. One is to make sure that in the United States we have as high vaccination rates as we can achieve. And of course, that makes us safer, but we will not be completely safe from variants that override the vaccine or are much more transmissible until other parts of the world are vaccinated as well. So,
thank you. And thank you. And I know that there is concern about one of the side effects, multiple medications, multiple vaccinations. I mean, we know there are side effects to many things. I watch TV quite a bit, especially since we've been locked down, you know, and there's numerous advertisements for different medications for different things, right? And at the end of every advertisement, they list all the precautions and what side effects may exist for those things. So in what you've seen around, just so our community and parents and students can understand and maybe feel a little bit more confident about what they're facing, when we hear about that myocarditis,
myocarditis,
myocarditis, and how that affects, possibly could be affecting. Can you get us some perspective on that?
Yes.
Our community, thanks.
The first thing that you mentioned was really quite important, I think, too. The you know, how this compares to drugs that have side effects and get taken off the shelves, you know, a couple of years after they've been approved. The difference between vaccines and medications are that vaccines side effects are known within 6 to 8 weeks, or occur 6 weeks, 8 weeks the longest after the vaccine was received. So you don't see side effects to vaccines, you know, years later. And so that is significant. As far as this vaccine and its side effect, yes, one of the most unfortunate side effects is that it can cause myocarditis, which is a heart muscle inflammation, and the group that it hits the most from the vaccine appears to be young teen males. And it is not frequent, but it is most frequent in that group. So if you were to look at all males at 12 to 17 years old, and you were to vaccinate 1 million of them, you would get 70 of them getting this myocarditis. So that's very low. You would not expect necessarily to see that in San Diego, let alone Sweetwater. When you look at females at that age, it occurs in less than half the rate of males. So maybe 35 per million females that are vaccinated. The good thing about this one side effect, if they can have a good thing about a side effect, is that it's what we call self-limiting. That although many of them have been observed in hospital, they did really nothing for them in the hospital. Maybe some oxygen, and observation. But all of them got better on their own without treatment, and all of them are doing really well. So far, there have been no re-hospitalizations of anybody who's received this. It causes shortness of breath, some pain with some tenderness when you're doing something very aerobic. It's those sorts of things. They're being observed. They're getting better all by themselves, and they're not coming back, and they're participating in sports and athletics without any other problems. The other important thing to remember is that for those 1 million people who get vaccinated between age 12 and 17 who are male, you do have 70 getting this self-limiting problem. If you had that same 1 million males not vaccinated, you would get 215 hospitalizations because of severe respiratory problems, and you would have 2 deaths. So if you were to measure vaccinating 1 million and having 70 males who get a self-limiting temporary mild myocarditis versus 215 severe enough respiratory problems to be hospitalized and 2 deaths, the obvious choice, if you're a betting person, is to vaccinate your young teen male, and certainly to vaccinate females and non-teens because the numbers are even better there. So I think those are the things we have to think about when we talk about side effects to the vaccine.
Thank you for that clarification and that education. I really appreciate it. I'd also like to kind of confirm the fact that if a person, a young person or an older person, an adult, or even a young child contracts COVID, they could really suffer long-term effects from that disease in ways that would be preventable had they been vaccinated. Is that not correct?
That is, yes, completely correct. Absolutely.
So the evidence weighs in favor of getting the vaccine, no matter which way you look at it. And as a person who's lived through all my life being vaccinated over the years, as a young child, stood in line to get the polio vaccine when it was out, and have also, you know, my mom's first husband died of polio, so I know how devastating that can be. So I know it is important, and I appreciate what people are saying about the need for freedom of choice and all these other things. But in fact, we are a society that must come together. We must come together to do all the activities that we enjoy in our life, right? And to be able to do that safely, it seems to me we need a vaccine. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hall. Dr. Arancibia?
I think this is the data that we're getting and the numbers that we're seeing they are telling us we have to vaccinate. We have to vaccinate. I've been here as a board member telling us to get vaccinated as much as possible. If we're going to talk about the anxiety that people feel, my father got a swine flu variant. The anxiety that I get in hearing each one of the cases where the folks are intubated and you don't get a chance to say goodbye to somebody because, it's something about choice. This is public health, folks. Seatbelts, we don't get a choice with. Vaccines, for kids, we don't get a choice. We have to vaccinate our kids to put them in school. Drinking and driving, that's public health. We just make the best choice based on the things. It's not about choice. It's about making the best decision for the public, for all of us, to be able to get back to living. And yes, that does involve, as Trustee Hall says, this aspect of actually caring about one another and coming together and making the best decision possible. Seeing your father die like that, intubated, and not being able to say goodbye is not something I wish on my worst enemy or the person I despise the most. Because that kind of loss, it takes years away from your life. And I really urge you all to get vaccinated. I've gotten vaccinated. I'm counting the days until the end of this month until my youngest get vaccinated. And it's not about the child themselves. At the same time, too, it's the community around the child. It's the grandparents, it's the tios, the tias, the abuelos that need to be able to feel safe to be able to have family functions again. Otherwise, during Christmas, we are going to have another surge. This is our act, or a moment to act as a community. We've done this before. World War II, polio. These are things that we have to work together to accomplish to get a level of immunity that we will all be safe in. Please think of others in this case. It's not about choice or personal freedoms. It's about making sure that the community as a whole is safer. It's not that difficult of a decision. We've done it before. I know we can do it again.
Thank you, Dr. Arencibia. Mr. Tarantino, did you want to?
Yeah, I also have a question. And thank you, Dr. Terrace, for being with us tonight to answer some of these questions. Is there any truth to some of the long-term effects that one might find on social media and various other mainstream media outlets for 12 to 17-year-olds, such as sterilization, changes in one's DNA, and the attack of one's immunity system to the point where they can no longer fight off disease? Is there any kind of scientific or clinical verification of those things, or are we too soon into the long-term effects?
Oh, no, there is absolutely no reason to believe that fertility or long-term immunity could be affected by a vaccine such as this. There are ways that the FDA collects such information, and there is no validity to that assertion. I would say that, 200 million vaccines have been given in this country, and many, many more if you count countries everywhere. This is probably one of the best studied vaccines anywhere. And none of those of problems that you mentioned are anticipated to be a problem. They are being monitored, as with even things that we don't know about are always being monitored, and those have not been found.
Thank you, sir, for that clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Tarantino. I'll go next. And I don't know, Vice President Solis, did you want to have something after that, sir? So I truly believe in the vaccination. I think it's needed because I was looking back at the dates. We've been dealing with this since, well, before this date, but when we adopted the emergency resolution for COVID in March of 2020. That's a long time ago. And that has led to, a lot of stress on everybody, on our students, on our parents, going to distance learning. My daughter spent the last year and a half distance learning, and she's graduated now, but it's been a lot, and it's very difficult and we had it, I would say we had it relatively easy, with only one student in, and I know some board members have elementary students in their, Dr. Arencibia does, and this has caused a lot of stress on not only the students, the parents, everybody. Our staff is exhausted, they're fried, the teachers are, we've done a lot, and I like to thank Dr. Moore, and General Counsel Jenna Carpucci, and all our staff who have, quite frankly, led a lot of getting testing and getting shots to our community. This, as we all know, our community was hit the hardest in the whole county, with the number, especially in our area, in this area that we sit in right now, 91911 and 9154. With a number of cases and death. I know I personally have friends and family that have passed or have recovered, not fully, but it's just been a lot of work and a lot of stress, and I know we've been fortunate to receive money from the federal government, from the state, to help for a lot of those expenses, but it's just still the answer is vaccinations. And I firmly believe that, and the sooner that we could get, reach that limit and have our teachers, vaccinated, and our students, and I like to thank President Walker for her comments, and I totally get that. I really do, and it's just a lot going on, and I just really, just say I firmly believe in the vaccinations, and the sooner that we get to that point, the sooner that we could get back to some sense of normalcy. And I don't mind getting, boosters. I'm eligible with because I meet some of the criteria for the third, for the third Pfizer, and it's just what we need to do so that we can get back to some normalcy, and with our students, with the community, with these meetings, and with just life. And so then with that, I'll go to Vice President Solis, if you have some comments, sir.
Thank you, President Segura. Yes, I'm having the Tarantino effect with my camera on, and my internet's a little off, so I apologize. But I've been listening. I turned off the camera, but I've been hearing everything. I just wanted to say I appreciate all the questions and comments, and appreciate the comments from the public. And Dr. Terrace, I really appreciate your knowledge and your input. Because my whole thing was always been, what are the long-term effects for our kids? Like if they get COVID, what have we found out as of now? What long-term effects that our kids have, what will have if they get COVID? Because I know my brother-in-law got COVID, and he still can't smell or taste, and he got it from I think it was back in the beginning of the pandemic. So he still can't taste, he still can't smell, and that's an adult. So what effects are we seeing in long-term effects for kids?
So kids are getting what we call long COVID, which because it affects the neurological system, can affect your sense of smell and taste. It can also have an effect on something that looks like chronic fatigue syndrome, exhaustion, etc. You can get myocarditis or pericarditis from the disease, just as you might from the vaccine, although that's not that common in that age group in children. The major problem, I think, are children who have just obesity, diabetes, asthma, especially severe, moderate to severe asthma. Those children are the ones that are most likely to end up in hospital and even die from this disease itself. So those are the very big critical problems that I see in the long term for young people who get this disease. Again, it's small compared to a 65-plus-year-old adult, but it happens. And we do know that many children have died. It's in the hundreds, not in the tens of thousands as with older people, but there are young people, high school age, who have died, particularly those who have an underlying condition, and some of them very common conditions, as we know, like obesity and asthma.
Excellent, thank you. And with regards to, I know one of the speakers said that she worked for Rady's as a nurse, and that they were not receiving many kids with COVID during the first I don't know if I want to say the first wave,
Right.
but a lot of the kids were asymptomatic. But now with this Delta variant, it's a little bit different because it is showing some effects on children, correct?
Correct. So since July, I'd say COVID came, the Delta came, say, in July, August, September, and in the United States, we have had more children in those 3 months hospitalized for COVID than there had been in the entire previous year of this disease. So yes, they're the ones that are now bearing the burden of the disease because they are a largely unvaccinated group.
So even though they're not dying in larger rates, they are transmitting it, right? If they have it,
They are transmitting it.
Unvaccinated.
They are transmitting it, and with each transmission, there's another chance for another variant to occur, because variants only happen when the disease is multiplying, and that only happens when it's transmitted from one person to another. So those things are the critical. They're also bringing it home to people who haven't yet had their booster, or who have never been able to have any vaccine yet, who have immune system problems or on immunosuppressive drugs because of a transplant or because of a chronic inflammatory. There are many people walking around amongst us who are on immune suppressant drugs. You would never know they were ill, but they are on immunosuppressant drugs. Those people do not get good vaccine responses, and so our children are passing that on to them, because if our kids aren't vaccinated, that is a problem. So it's both in the child's best interest as well as in the families of that child best interest, as well as in the greater community best interest, to have high vaccination rates.
I appreciate that very much. And have you got any insight on any of the trials that have been happening for the 5 to 12 year olds?
Yes, we see some data on them. I haven't read any of the summaries of them, and I really rely on the committees that report to the FDA, because unlike me, who can read a study and make an assessment of how good it was, where did they get their data from, what were their controls like, that is not my job as a full-time person. And the people that are looking at these studies have much better access to the quality of the information. And so I will reserve judgment from the 5 to 12-year-old group until I've read the summaries from these committees that report to the FDA. who have epidemiology experience, infectious disease experience, virology experience, and can really sort through the data that's messy and not really clean to the data that is really worth looking at. So I never would say, yeah, it's going to be safe for the 5 to 12-year-olds until I've read the reports from those committees. So I'll reserve judgment on them. All I can say is that I'm hopeful.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Terrace, for your time and your knowledge.
Thank you.
That's it for me. Thank you, President Suda.
Thank you, Vice President Solis. Dr. Moore?
Dr. Terrace, just because we've heard this term in the presentation and around, if you could give us just a clarification around what it means that the vaccine is fully approved versus emergency authorization. If you could just distinguish between those two.
Absolutely. So to get emergency use approval, you have to have controlled studies that look for two things: efficacy, how effective is it? Is it really preventing a significant amount of disease? And safety. Are the side effects minimal and manageable, or are they really concerning? And so those are the things that we look at. These are controlled studies, so they look at several thousand people who have received the vaccine and several thousand that have not received the vaccine. And they compare how they fare over the ensuing weeks and months. If it looks like the side effects have been minimal and easy to manage, and it looks like it has been effective, then it gets emergency use approval. To get full, or emergency use authorization, I should say, to get a full approval, more time and more vaccinated people have to have passed, and more data is collected. This is where we find the problems with 1 in a million, 70 in a million, as we talked about with myocarditis. This is where you find the really rare things. And you also get more data, of course, on how effective it is, particularly because effectiveness changes as the vaccine evolves. But a full approval will catch very rare problems. So when they fully approved it for 16 years old and older, it is because they have really looked at all these rare problems. And that's why we know fertility does not seem to be a valid issue at all, nor does problems with your immune system appear to be have any validity at all, because now we have millions and millions of people 16 and over who have been looked at, people have been collecting data on, and it gives us a lot more confidence in even rare problems. So right now it's only 16 and over where we have full approval, and everyone else is emergency use authorization from 12 and up. And that, of course, is just for the Pfizer. The data has not been yet looked at carefully enough for a conclusion by the FDA for the Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson for those over 12.
Thank you, Dr. Terrace. Thank you, Dr. Moore. Do we have any more questions on this? No? Well, I could tell you, I would like to request staff to bring forward a plan to implement the governor's mandate to ensure we comply. That's my ask.
That's your ask, right? So you don't need a second on that?
Do we, is that going to need, that won't need a vote? No.
I don't think so, right?
Okay, right. Trustee Hall?
You're muted.
We can't hear you. You're okay? All right. Thank you.
President Segura, this is a presentation item only, so a vote is not required at this time.
Thank you. So I believe that concludes our presentation and our ask. So thank you, Dr. Harris, for providing that insight and,
Thanks.
and accuracy
Dr. Harris.
information. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So now we can move on. Does anybody need a bathroom break? Are we good? Okay, so let's move on to K1, pulled by Mr. Tarantino.
Thank you, President Segura. I had a question about the consultant, Roberta Cook. And I would like to know how does this dovetail with some of the people that we have in place in-house to oversee things that deal with COVID? Does it complement it? Is it in addition to? Is it taking the place of? That's the first one. Then I have another one that I want to ask about the Chula Vista High.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Tarantino, regarding Roberta Cook. This is from our legal office, so I will have Ms. Carbuccia respond.
Sure, thank you. There are many parts of COVID testing in this district. Right now, we are in a partnership with San Diego State, where they provide services at five different sites each week. It will be as part of, they will do all of our middle school testing, which will be up to 8 sites, but they have sites once a week. Similarly, we have concentric visits about 22 of our sites, and they are there 1 day a week for pool testing, 1 day potentially to handle what comes of that. We don't necessarily have, without putting the burden on our own school nurses who do have the ability under their job description, similarly the one health tech we have in the district would have the ability to give vaccinations or to do testing. We really are trying to bring in outside services to help. And so we have a couple of places where we have holes. The ability to get someone to come in and test the district office at hours outside of when concentric can test, or to assist with adult school, or to assist with transportation. So there's a number of different places where we are sometimes needing, we need to have someone that we could call in as a nurse, as opposed to myself or Dr. Moore or Mr. Isa or Dr. Reyes going in and doing a test, or trying to wait a day or two until we can get a student or a staff member tested. So we have asked Nurse Cook to assist us in those off hours, and to assist us in helping do some trainings to our internal COVID short-term staff that are assisting with contact tracing and some others. So it really is to complement the services. We are still hoping, there are a couple of holes still. We're hoping in working with the state, as well as in potentially buying tests that we need ourselves. We will need an ordering physician, which we have through Dr. Aflalo, and that will be coming forward to you again, and we will need nurses to assist, and we just aren't in a place where we want to have to rely on our RNs, because there's so many things they're already doing for us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. In terms of the Tariq TKF, it mentions that's being requested from Chula Vista High, it mentions that there's going to be a 10-week curriculum. Has it been identified what subject is going to assume that 10-week curriculum, or is that 10-week curriculum embedded in the assemblies that are scheduled?
Thank you for that question, Trustee Tarantino. The Tariq Kamisa Foundation, and I'm familiar with the program and pieces of the curriculum, is really focused on some of the larger pieces of our district, including restorative practices and conducting presentations. The actual foundation itself is very unique. It was formed by from a situation where the two parents of a disastrous, tragic murder, one young man was murdered, the other, Tariq Kamisa, was murdered, and then the other young man was the suspect or arrested for it. The two parents of that got together, and so the foundation of the work that they do, and they've done this work for decades now, is really focused on restorative, peacemaking, good decisions, and so forth. And it's a 10-week curriculum that really has those presentations embedded in it. And I guess in terms of your question, has the curriculum been vetted, or?
No, my question is, where's that curriculum going to be presented? Is it going to be presented in a class, such as maybe a health class, or is it going to be embedded in the 10-week, the assemblies that are associated with this program?
So one is for sure the assemblies and larger presentations, but I will ask Dr. Winters and/or Ms. Lizarraga if they have any further specific information on this.
Good evening. And no, I don't have anything more to add with Dr. Alvarez not here. I'm not familiar with the school's goal as to how they're going to utilize it besides the assemblies, so I can't add anything to that.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I have.
We'll make sure we provide an update to you on how exactly the implementation plan.
Because if it's through health, if it's through the health classes, many of our students take health outside of the district because there's no room in their schedule to take it. If they're taking AVID and all these other IB courses, AP courses, so I'd like to get the best bang for the buck, and so I was just wondering where it was going to be placed. If there's no other questions.
I think we have another question
Oh,
from
I'm sorry.
Trustee Hall. Go ahead, Trustee Hall. We still can't hear you, Trustee Hall.
Can she sign it?
Do you want to call? I think she waved us off, so.
Can she write it and show it?
She has a very bad connection. You could call in. I guess we'll move past, so entertain a motion.
Actually, Mr. Segura, if I may, I need to announce something related to page 2, which is the item for Roberta Cook. The budget that's listed says Title I grant, and it should actually be in-person grant. The resource code is correct. So we will revise that after board approval. Thank you.
Move to approve.
I will second. Let's vote.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall? Votes yes. Thank you. Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, let's move to N1 under purchasing, pulled by Mr. Tarantino, and it's regards to painting.
Yes, I was just curious about the timing, because there are some projects that, for example, Southwest High School involves the entire outside being painted, and then the other schools are various classrooms. So whenever possible, is is this work going to take place outside of the school day, if possible, or is it all within the school day and the school calendar when kids are in session?
Thank you for that question, Trustee Tarantino. I will have Chief Facilities and Operations Officer, Ms. Quirk, respond.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the question. It'll be a combination of everything that you just mentioned. So we will be starting this project during the school year. We will be taking advantage of the weekends and the breaks as to the best of our ability. For the main campus, there's a pretty extensive amount of work that will occur. And then there's the two other locations at Montgomery. It's their adaptive PE, and then at Southwest Middle, it's the auditorium. Right. So they'll be working with the sites to coordinate that as best as possible for as little impact and burden to the campus.
Thank you. That's all I had.
So before we vote on that, real fast, I'd just like to say, as I was reading it, I was really happy to see that we had 11 contractors at the walk, and we actually had 5 contractors bid. So that's good. It's always good when you have over 3. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to vote? Call the vote?
Second.
So vote, please.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Hall? Votes yes. Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
And that takes us to N3. Mr. Tarantino, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to know how does this dovetail with, because it seems like in the analysis there were a lot of huge projects that were mentioned in the response that this company put in the RFP. How does that dovetail with the PLA that we have in place? Does it complement it, or is it? What role does the PLA have, I guess, in all of this? That was my question.
Dr. Moore?
Yes, thank you for that response. Since you're asking, I think, specifically a PLA question, I'll have Ms. Quirk and or Ms. Carbuccia respond.
You have to give it a second. Or give it up.
What about now?
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, so thank you. Actually, it's not connected to the PLA at all. We are bringing on a, and I'm okay. Okay. You insist. Thank you, sir. We are bringing on an estimating firm to help program specifically and directly as we're working on master plan work, program identification for Measure DD for the duration of Propo CFD projects, Fund 35, et cetera. O'Connor does have a huge, vast amount of experience in public construction, which is fantastic, but they are not a direct relationship to the PLA. They will not be doing the estimates for the projects, which determine if projects are PLA viable.
So basically, they're just putting together a schematic, so to speak?
Not even that.
No?
I'm going to be utilizing them for, we have our master plan.
Yes.
In our master plan, we have cost per square foot for projects. We have escalation assumptions built in there, but that's a moving target on a regular basis.
Right.
We're going to be utilizing them to help us refine that detail as we move through program.
Thank you.
Sure.
That helps.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Without entertain a motion for approval of that, or entertain a motion?
I'll move approval.
I will second. Let's vote.
Second.
Arencibia?
Yes.
Hall? Votes yes. Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Yes.
Tarantino?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, it takes us down to P2, pulled by staff.
Thank you, President Segura. So P2 is a review of our board bylaw 9320, where we discuss the schedule of our board meetings. Per board member request, there's been a desire to change regular board meetings to once per month. And so our clerk of the board, Ms. Vacedo, will discuss and provide any background information that we need for this item. Ms.
Yes, thank you. So as you know, in December, per Ed Code, we bring to the organizational meeting the schedule of meetings for the next year. Our meetings are set in bylaw, which currently is 2 regular meetings a month, held on the second and fourth Mondays. It is up to the discretion of the board when those meetings are held. But in order to assist staff to prepare the calendar to bring to you in December, if there is a desire to change that, we would ask for your guidance and action tonight. We do have a few things to consider. There is a meeting, there is a desire to have 2 meetings in the month of June related to the LCAP and the budget, because there is a public hearing process and then an approval process. And there are several months where we would need to hold the meeting before the 15th if we do move to 1 meeting a month, simply because of first interim, second interim, unaudited actuals, things of that nature. If the desire was to hold 1 meeting a month, if the board were to make it such as on the second Monday in the month, for every month, that would certainly meet that requirement of being before the 15th. So we're just looking for direction so that we can prepare the calendar for next year.
Thank you. It's pulled by Dr. Arancibia.
Yeah, no, and this is, I'm really thankful for all the information, Deanne, and I just wanted to poll everyone to see if they were okay with the idea of the second Monday of the month being the one day of the month that we end up meeting. Our I don't know, colleagues, how do you feel about it?
So I totally in support of that, and I'm good with the extra meetings where we need them, and we could always call for an extra meeting if need be.
I think the deal with the budget is it has to be at a regular meeting. It can't be a special meeting, so that's why we
Yeah,
would ask to
besides-
specify that in June
right.
it would be 2 regular
Besides
meetings.
that meeting.
Yes.
General besides
Yes.
that meeting. Yes, I totally understand and get that. But that's, we've had 2 meetings a month for, well, since I've been here, now 5 years, 6 years, however long, and yeah, I'm ready for just 1 meeting a month where we can. Anybody else want to weigh in on it? Mr. Tarantino?
Yeah, I think when we all took office, I think there was a lot of business that was either left undone or needed to be addressed, and we needed the 2 meetings a month. I think now we're at a point where 1 meeting a month, I think, would serve us well. Do I like getting out at 8 o'clock? Yes, but is there any fail-safe? I have a question. Is there any fail-safe that we don't have to go till 2 o'clock in the morning like we used to do? Can we put some kind of parameters? Is that legal, or do we have to meet until all business is finished? Because I really don't want to stay till 2 o'clock in the morning. I think after 10 o'clock, I think I'll speak for myself. My brain becomes mush, and so is there any kind of parameters that we could put? Is that something that the Brown Act respects, or do we have to just go until we drop dead?
Deanne?
I don't believe the Brown Act is specific to that. However, when we did have 1 meeting a month before, it was written into the bylaw that the meeting would end at 10 p.m. The board could take a vote by action one time to extend the meeting for a specified period of time if they so desired. So if 10 o'clock came and they weren't done, they could make a vote, we need to extend the meeting for an hour, do that next hour, and then that was it, no matter where they were. So you can certainly add language as you desire if you wanted to put some parameters like that in the bylaw.
And another point of clarification, then would the remaining items, if they were not attended to at that meeting, even past an extended meeting, was that added to the next meeting?
Yes.
And from your perspective, how did that go? Was it just a vicious cycle, like a hamster running on a wheel that we just kept having to extend and push back, or
I think
did it all work out?
I think normally if they would extend it, they would finish the business by the time they extended it. We did go through a period of time where we were having meetings that were adjourned before we finished the items, and they would be moved to the next agenda. I think that was more a sign of the times that we were going through than any sort of issue with the board. But I don't know that that was a normal circumstance. Normally, when they would extend it, they would finish the business and then move forward.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes, let me get to the trustee Solis.
Thank you, President Segura. Thank you for bringing this forward, Mr. Tarantino. Yeah, I'm full in support of the second Monday. However, also wanted to look at how viable it would be to move the date. I know we're used to Monday, but because I know if we go long, sometimes the staff has to come back and then drag on Tuesday and Wednesday and then catch up, and then they're finally ready to go on Thursday or Friday. But I don't know if anybody's open to the second Thursday of the month or something like that. But if not, to the second Monday.
Anyone?
I would like to hear from staff.
Yeah, and actually, just thinking about what Ms. Macedo just said, I think the problem with the Thursday date is that you could run into a Thursday that could be after the 15th.
Yes.
And then we would not be for certain budgetary issues, we wouldn't be able to have that meeting at that time. So that's why I say the second Monday was probably the best.
Thank you. Trustee Hall?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I had to call in. Yes, I kind of like the idea of switching the day of the week, as Board Vice President Solis had indicated, because I think the Monday puts a lot of strain on the weekends for many of our people. It also limits the time we have to address questions during the work week to our superintendent and to where he directs the staff to answer the questions we may have about agenda items, because it pinches out all over the weekend when staff are off. And I also think it would allow for more people to be present, because Mondays tend to be crowded on calendars, and it would also allow the two delegates we elect every year to represent us on the County Board of Ed, the County Board of Trustees. You know, they have delegates from every district in the county on this committee, and I'm wondering if they have their meetings on Mondays. So our delegates keep missing the meetings of these very, I think, really pertinent and very important meetings where our voice is not being heard because our delegates can't attend. And I think that is really a loss for all of us here in the South Bay, because we have a voice that needs to be heard, and our votes need to be counted at those meetings. They also have trainings at the county on those Mondays. And I know that there was one that was sent out recently that occurred last month. None of us could attend because it was the same day as our regular meeting. So I'm just suggesting that we ask staff to look into that possibility and to really bring us back with pros and cons on that, changing the day of the week when they bring back a meeting agenda. And I also remember when we used to be here till 3 in the morning, and as invigorating as that was at the time, I do agree that I appreciate these short meetings. It's been really wonderful how regular this is. Like most boards probably operate, where nobody comes in and really there isn't much to it because they're kind of boring. So I think I like that idea, as long as it's sufficient. But I do think there are months of the year, because of the deadlines at the state level, that we really need to consider and allow the staff to bring back a calendar that would accommodate those. when it would be the best time for us to have a meeting if we moved to a one meeting a month. That's my thought.
Thank you. Let me go to Trustee Solis and then to you, Mr. Tarantino.
Thank you, President Segura. Thank you, Paula, for that. With regards to our CSBA meetings, we managed, President Segura and myself managed to talk to the group, and they had a survey, and most people were okay with moving it to the third Monday. So now we're having those meetings on the third Monday, so we won't be missing out on that. And with regards to the date, what about the first Thursday or something like that, if anybody's open to that? Because I know that'll be before the 15th, but yeah, just throwing it out there. But that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Dr. Moore?
And I just wanted to make sure that staff had a chance to respond to a couple of things that were brought up. One is regarding board meeting end times. We talked about like a hard time ending at 10 p.m. I think there was a question regarding the Brown Act and legality of that. I wanted the General Counsel, Ms. Carbuccia, to respond.
Sure, I think where the suggestion that Deanne had from what was in the previous meeting of extending once is common. What you are starting to see in districts is that it allows for 2 extensions just in case you don't finish. Because it does give you that one time, and oh my goodness, unless you set it for 3 hours, you potentially have that issue. So just to consider, it would be a once or twice extension is what a number of districts, there are a number of districts in our area that do have hard stops, and they vote to extend, and that sometimes also, if for some reason you were to need to go back into closed session, not that we do it very often, but some boards do, that time that you set it for also covers closed session. So just as an important thing to note along that piece.
And thank you, Ms. Carbuccia. And the second was about switching the days of the week. There was a question presented to staff, and I wanted, I may have an opinion or not, but I did want Ms. Facedo to chime in, and if there was any discussion about the different days of the week as opposed to Monday.
Not in a bad way, but are we making the decision today?
No, there's going to bring.
If we're asking questions, not in a bad way, but I feel like everybody's coming up. Ms. Macedo is like.
No, it's fine, and you're welcome to take action tonight. We wrote it so that you can.
This is one of the things. If we're not going to take action, I think what it behooves us is probably coming to having a discussion, maybe even closed session, just be able to figure out what works best, or even email questions. Because right now we're just sitting here asking more and more questions to be able to figure out what works for our calendar. And I'm not in a bad way. I don't think we're going to be able to decide today.
Yeah, and just, again, just a couple of quick points of clarification. One is the agenda item is really about board bylaw and the revision to board bylaw 9320. And there's some highlights right there about our regular meetings. And then 2 is the discussion of our calendar is really an open session item. And so that's why it needs to take place in this format.
Mr. Tarantino, did you still have a question, sir?
Yeah, I just did a cursory look at calendar, and February, March, June, September, and November, the second Thursday is beyond the 15th of the month.
That answers that. Trustee Hall?
Yes, thank you. I would like to request that we bring a board item back to review the board policy that Mr. Tarantino referred to. Because I don't like the idea of having a hard cap on hard stop on our end times, because, we need to be flexible, and I don't know that I want to take a vote every time we need to extend the meeting a little bit past 10 o'clock. We've been not having that happen very often this year, which has been really great, but I don't think it should take an act of the board to say we got to go another half hour. I just don't like that. So I'd like to have a discussion on that board policy and possible amendment to it brought forward. And I would also suggest that we maybe table this and bring it back when I can actually understand everybody, because it's been very difficult for me to understand what Ms. Carbucha said and what Mr. Arancibia has said in the comments. Thank you. I'm having difficulties with my audio, apparently.
And that's how I understand it. The staff can bring back options to correct on right? That's where I thought we were going with this, so that we don't have to nail it down tonight. So we're going to bring back options to this, to the board to vote on and discuss.
So she moved to table. Do we need a second?
If she was making a motion, then yes.
Did you move to table, Paula?
So Paula,
Yes, she moved to table.
okay.
I second that motion to table.
Motion to table, vote please.
Arancibia?
Yes.
Hall? Votes yes. Segura?
Yes.
Solis?
Just a point of clarification, we will be getting more information if we table this, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes.
Tarantino?
No.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no.
Okay, that concludes that one. Let's move to Q2, pulled by staff.
We already did Q2, sir.
Oh, that was Q2.
We did that at the beginning.
That one just bit me like 3 times.
Yeah.
All right, even better than that, we are adjourned.